The knock on her door that night sounded ordinary, soft, hesitant, almost apologetic. But when Admiral Elise Rowan opened it, the sight on her porch made her freeze. Standing in the rain was the janitor she had met only once, the single dad who had helped her when she was afraid to ask for help. Except now, he wasn't alone. Behind him stood two officers in dress blues, holding something she never thought she'd see again. And in that moment, before a word was spoken, she already felt her life shifting in a way she could never have imagined. The night that began with a simple act of kindness was about to reveal its purpose. The day had been long for Admiral Elise Rowan, too long. She had just left a high-pressure Senate briefing, the kind that left her carrying the weight of the entire Pacific Fleet on her shoulders. The rain poured like the sky itself was exhausted. Her driver was delayed, and she stood outside the federal building, soaked, frustrated, and utterly alone. That's when she saw him, a man in a cheap rain jacket, pushing a mop bucket under the dim streetlight. His posture was tired but steady, as if he'd lived his whole life learning how to carry weight without breaking. His name tag read Marcus Hale. He glanced at her only once before returning to his work. He didn't stare, didn't try to recognize her rank. He simply acknowledged her with a small nod, like one human seeing another trying to survive the day. The wind kicked up, blowing her paperwork everywhere, dozens of sensitive pages scattering across puddles. Elise gasped and tried to grab them, slipping on the wet sidewalk. But Marcus reacted faster. He dropped everything, rushing forward, catching her arm before she fell. Then he moved with surprising agility, gathering every page from the water, wiping them gently on his shirt, protecting them like they were treasures. "Thank you," she whispered, breathless. "No need," he said, handing the papers back with a quiet smile. "Storm catches us all sometimes." His voice held warmth, gentle, steady, like someone who had spent his life calming storms rather than running from them. They shared a moment of silence beneath the rain. She saw it then, the exhaustion in his eyes, the sorrow tucked just under the surface. He wasn't simply tired. He was carrying a story. "Can I call you a ride?" Elise asked. But at that exact moment, a small, shivering voice called from under the building's awning. "Dad!" A little girl, no older than 9, peeked out, wearing a school sweatshirt way too big for her. She hugged a damp backpack to her chest. Marcus rushed over, removing his jacket and wrapping it around her tiny shoulders. He spoke gently, brushing rain from her cheeks. "Lily, sweetheart, you should have stayed inside." Elise felt something tighten in her chest. The girl's slight tremble. The father's protective arms. The realization that this man was not just a janitor. He was a single dad doing everything he could. "Your shift ended hours ago," Lily whispered. "We missed the last bus." "I know," he replied softly. "It's okay. We'll walk." Elise stepped toward them. "You're walking home? In this?" Marcus hesitated. Pride and hardship fought in his eyes. "We'll manage. We always do." He said it like a promise he'd made 1,000 times before. Something inside Elise refused to let it go. Maybe it was the day, maybe it was the rain, or maybe it was the way Lily clung to her father's hand like he was the only stable thing left in her world. "Let me drop you home," Elise said. "Please." This time, Marcus didn't argue. He simply nodded with quiet gratitude. During the drive, Elise learned the truth. He had once dreamed of joining the Navy. He passed all tests, even earned a preliminary call sign during training exercises, Compass, because he always helped others find their way. But on the morning of his final evaluation, his wife had collapsed without warning. By the time he reached the hospital, she was gone. He quit everything to raise his newborn daughter alone. Life spiraled. Jobs were lost. Rent piled up. But he held on to Lily, and Lily held on to him. When Elise dropped them at their small, run-down apartment, Lily waved with a bright smile. "Thank you for being kind to my dad," she said. Elise felt something shift inside her. A crack in the armor she wore every day. As she drove away, she didn't yet know that this small act of kindness would come back to her in a way she could never expect. Loud, urgent, and life-changing. But she would know soon. Because 2 days later, there was a knock on her door. The storm had returned that night, tapping on windows like restless fingers. Elise sat at her kitchen table, going over classified reports, when someone knocked, soft but steady. She opened the door and froze. There stood Marcus Hale. His clothes were damp again, his eyes tired yet determined. But behind him were two Navy officers in dress uniform. They carried a folded coat, a badge, a sealed envelope stamped with a code she recognized instantly. "Admiral Rowan," one officer said, saluting. "We found something that belongs to you." They stepped forward, offering the code, the same one she'd lost 2 days earlier in the rain. Elise took it, confused. "The only reason it didn't end up in disposal," the officer continued, "is because Marcus Hale here recognized the security patch and reported it immediately. His actions prevented a potential breach." Elise looked at Marcus in shock. "I didn't think much of it," he said softly. "Just doing what anyone would do." But the officer shook his head. "No, sir. Hardly anyone does what you did." Then came the moment Elise didn't expect. The second officer opened the sealed envelope and presented her with a file. "Admiral, per updated Navy directive, if you wish to recommend a civilian for reinstatement of military candidacy, you may do so after personal evaluation." Elise's breath caught. She looked at Marcus. His hands trembled, not with fear, but with something deeper. A memory of who he used to be. A dream he buried to raise a daughter alone. "Marcus," she whispered, "you still want to serve, don't you?" His eyes glistened. "I never stopped wanting it. I just stopped believing I was allowed." Then Lily stepped forward, holding something wrapped in a cloth, something she had been hiding behind her back. Her father's old training patch. "Dad," she said quietly, "if the Navy wants you now, maybe it's time you go back." Marcus knelt, overwhelmed. "But what about you?" "I'll be okay," Lily whispered. "You always tell me to chase my dreams. Now it's your turn." The room fell silent, thick with emotion, heavy with possibility. Elise felt her own voice soften. "Marcus Hale, the Navy doesn't just need strong soldiers. It needs strong hearts. And you have one of the strongest I've ever seen." A tear slipped down his cheek. And then, something no one expected, the officer saluted him. Not because of rank, not because of uniform, but because of character. Elise stepped forward and said the words that sealed the turning point of his life. "I hereby recommend Marcus Hale, callsign Compass, for reinstatement." Marcus gasped. Lily covered her mouth. It felt like the universe inhaled. For the first time since his wife died, Marcus allowed himself to hope, truly hope. That night, everything changed. Not because Marcus saved an admiral, not because Elise returned a favor, but because kindness, even the smallest drop in the rain, can ripple into a tide strong enough to change lives. And as Elise watched father and daughter embrace under the porch light, she realized something. Sometimes the people who feel invisible are the ones destined to lead others home.